and welcome back to When Harry Met Sally.
Who are you meeting? I'm Sally, Harry.
I'm meeting you, Sal.
I'm so glad. I think the last introduction I stumbled as well, trying to say professional photography podcast.
Not professional, just photography podcast. A photography podcast.
I know, and I added professional.
Here we go,
completely
ready?
Wrong.
Hi, welcome back to When Harry Met Sally, a photography podcast.
Oh, you are so smooth. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing, Sal?
Really well, thank you. It's been a fantastic few episodes that we've had going in the last couple of weeks, and today is no different.
I know. I'm very excited. We have Darrian Traynor in the house.
Hello, Darrian.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm well, and thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. It's very exciting to have you sitting here. I've seen you a few times in the last few weeks, and I'm just going to get stuck straight into it. I love this idea of photographers are multifaceted, so we all do different things, even though that sometimes we're known for one thing in general. And I first came across your name when you entered one of our award programs with this beautiful documentary photography project in Gaza. And so I've always known you as a documentary photographer, making personal projects. However, I've just realised in recent years that a lot of people refer to you as a sports photographer.
Well, that's when we started talking about Darrian's name. I said, sports photographer, and you're going, no, the documentary photographer. And then I looked at your Instagram, and then there was something different, and it was, So, yes, I agree. Sports photographer or documentary photographer. Who are you?
So who are you, Darrian?
I'm a photographer. I think, I'm both in some regards. I started as a sports photographer, definitely, and am hugely passionate about sports photography and great sports photography. But by the same token, taking a great photograph at the AFL Grand Final or the Australian Open, it's not curing cancer. And neither is my documentary photography, but it has a lot more to say. And it scratches an itch and something in me that is beyond just the sports stories. So sitting on the boundary line or the sidelines of great sporting events is a real buzz, and it's exciting. And watching the best athletes in the world do their thing is incredible. They do amazing things, and they can do things with their bodies, and the athleticism on display is incredible.
Yeah.
It's a privilege to capture that stuff.
As is yours, holding those long lenses, right?
Yeah, well, there is that excitement, and there is that privilege, but there's that, look at me, I'm on the sidelines of the AFL Grand Final, I must be special. But there's nothing more, nothing sort of gives me more reward than travelling overseas and discovering a story or researching a story and shining a light on some project or something that I hope needs a light shine on it, or can give voice to people that otherwise wouldn't have a voice, and that sort of photography just has always appealed to me.
Feeds the soul a bit more.
Yeah, so whilst the sports stuff is incredible for me, and I can earn a good living out of it working here in Australia, and especially in Melbourne, there's so much sport and a fascination with sport. So I can make a good living out of that, which can also then feed into and fund a lot of personal projects elsewhere.
We've talked a lot about that in previous episodes, about running a commercial practice alongside an art practice or a documentary practice, and how important time management is, and as Harry just said, feeding your soul as well as funding your life as well. If I can just talk about sports photography for a minute, because we work with a lot of young people, and when we're in the universities teaching and talking to young people, so many of them want to be sports photographers. Were you a sporty kid? Did you grow up wanting to play sport, or did you sort of fall into taking sport photography? How did that kind of come about?
I was sporty in to a degree. I was never great at anything. I was a chronic asthmatic as a child, so sport, it was suggested, I grew up in Ballarat, so it was suggested to run, swim or bike ride. Swimming was out, it's too cold. Running's too bad on your bones, so I took up cycling to build aerobic capacity and to help with my lungs and my breathing. And so I got into sport. I wasn't a particularly good footballer. I wasn't, a little bit of basketball, but I loved sport. Like, like everyone growing up in the country, that's what you do.
Yep.
You just go out and kick the footy in the
Yep.
winter, and you go and play cricket on the street in the summer. And so I loved sport, and then discovered photography later in life, having done a whole host of other things to get where I was. And it's like, how can I marry these two up?
Yeah, okay.
great.
So it was very intentional.
Yeah, it was a very intentional path,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of the young people that we're talking to are similar. Like they've just got this real love of sport, or they're ex-sports people, or, ballerinas or ballet dancers that then take photography of theatre and ballet, and they understand when that moment's going to be, or, what is a good goal, or, whatever it might be within sports. So it's lovely to be able to tie the two together, right?
It is, and the great sports photography with movement and light and all of it. I mean, they look like oil paintings. Some of them, there's Caravaggio involved. Like the light, the poses, the athleticism, capturing that and freezing that it's exciting. It's as much art sort of photography as it is, just witnessed sport.
So just for those that are listening at the moment, so as a freelance sports photographer, we will get to talk about the documentary stuff in a minute, but as the freelance, I just get asked this a lot, as a freelance sports photographer, are you, is it up to you to be able to get onto the sidelines at the MCG or get into the Australian Open, or are you asked to do that by somebody, and who might that be?
Yeah, so with all of those major events, you would need accreditation. You need special accreditation to go to. So you would need to work for an outlet that has the capability of getting you accredited to those things. So I work as a stringer, a freelancer with Getty Images. So most of my sport is shot for Getty Images. So they would get me accreditation to the Australian Open or the AFL or the Grand Prix. Or recently I was in the Caribbean for the Cricket World Cup. Or,
were you? I mean, I'd even be interested in cricket if they sent me to the Caribbean.
Well, I spent most of my time shooting the cricket, and then my head was elsewhere going, what's the little, cultural story I can photograph?
Yeah.
What's the documentary story I can do on my day off?
Yeah.
But yeah, so you work for organisations that have that ability to get accredited. You don't start at the grand final. You don't start with Getty Images and just go, I'll shoot the grand final because I know about football. I mean, it's a long, hard road. It's years as a freelancer shooting, under eights soccer and selling prints to the parents.
Yeah.
It's getting up in the morning and driving out to Bundoora to do whatever. And, it's a grind, and you build up your folio shooting VFL or lower leagues or netball on a Saturday. All of those things, and building a folio and an eye.
And a network.
And a network.
And you did all that?
Yeah.
That's so important for people to know.
Absolutely.
Because people, I think, starting out are like, maybe they feel like they don't want to do that kind of graft, but you actually kind of have to, do the hard work.
Exactly why I'm asking, because, I speak to people like this all the time, and you do that. You've just got to work at it, don't you? And it doesn't happen overnight.
No, there's a romance to going, look, I shoot sport, I sit at these major events. It's a small part of what is required. That like a company like Getty Images has a whole bunch of clients as well. So you might have to go to events and shoot a whole big brief before that. You've got to shoot outside fans, you've got to shoot corporate events inside, and then you shoot the actual game. But getting to that stage of your career is not, it doesn't happen overnight. You've got to want, and that's not just sport, that's in the newspapers, that's in documentary photography. I would assume it's commercial work, and
because you work in the news, you've done a lot of protest work, and has that come from the sports stuff? Was it sports at the beginning, or is it kind of a mixed bag?
It was sports at the beginning, but I also work with The Age as a freelance photographer.
Yeah.
So that and that was my wanting. My final folio when I was in photojournalism. I studied photojournalism at Photography Studies College, and I didn't do sport so much in the final folio, and it was I wanted to do more documentary stuff, and that had always been there. So working for The Age and working hard news, protesters, bushfires, floods, walking into a home, someone who's just lost a family member, whatever it is, I think that broadens your skills, and it gives you a different approach when you shoot sport.
Yeah.
As sport gives me a different approach when I go and shoot a protest.
Yes.
Because I'm ready for the moment, or I'm shooting fast, or I'm moving, watching how bodies react and move.
We've spoken about this before, and I've only just met you now. We certainly know of each other, but you're also an incredibly engaging person, and you're very easy to talk to, and you feel like you've known you for a really long time, and all of those skill sets are equally, if not more important than the imagery that you're taking, especially in your documentary situation, but also getting the trust of athletes and sports people. And you know, that's something that we really want to talk to our audience about all the time. It's never just about the image, is it?
Incredible set of skills that need to be learned. Like great photographers. There's incredible photographers out there that just don't have the interpersonal skills. So that was something I worked on, as well as networking, was the two things I recognised that I needed to step my game up. So there's the Darrian Traynor who is the photographer, and then there's the Darrian Traynor who doesn't have a camera. He is an extremely quiet, reserved.
Yeah.
I'm a different
Jekyll
person
and Hyde.
when I work, and I know I have to be.
Yeah.
I'm shy and introverted.
I think a lot of photographers are. There's a reason why we put this kind of machine in front of our faces and observe the world rather than engage.
That's why they come to me who's not, and then I make a noise about them.
Correct. But it's true. It's so true.
But that's also really endearing as well, you know, because you can read a room.
Yeah.
And that you know that not everybody that you're going to meet's like, bah! And full on, and that you can be calm and quiet. And all of those sorts of skill sets are why people let you into their lives if they've lost a loved one or whatever it might be.
Exactly.
You know?
Working with refugees in the Middle East or something like that, you know, you walk into a room, they're telling you a story of how they've, you know, fled Syria or been bombed in Gaza, or, you know, the first thing I do is put the cameras on the ground. It's a disarming thing. It's like, I want to hear your story. And I do. I want to hear your story. I want to feel the moment. I want to be present in the moment, and I want to show you how privileged I am that you're allowing me into your life to tell me this. And then, you know, you might pick up the camera and take a picture of the little kid in the corner, and
the kid might pick up the camera and take a picture of you.
Has happened. Has happened. And then they come over and want to look at the back of the screen, and then the parent, oh, okay, and then you soften up, but it's not a tactic in a deliberate sense in that I'm there to exploit people. It's like, no, I need to hear your story, and I need to sit with you, and I need to give your story and your background the respect it deserves.
And so on that note, with your documentary photography, are you writing as well, or are you just simply taking, not simply, but is it just images, or are you writing as well?
I have written a bunch of stuff before, and you know, trying to tell people stories. I'm not there to be, so a lot of my work happens in the Middle East. I'm not there to be a Middle East analyst. There's way smarter people out there, and you can't unravel that simply. The whole region is very, very intense. People like to use the word complicated. So I have written just colour, like just piece, you know, what I've felt, the person, their story, what they have told me. What I'm now doing is starting to think about and I have started working with other people, collaborating with people that are experts in that space. So, you know, I'm working with academics that want to write about. So the latest project I'm working on is statelessness and legal identity. So I'm working with academics that know the subject and are writing about it, and I'm telling them, okay, this is an incredible subject. But without a photograph for someone to cling to, you're preaching to other academics, and the writing's really heavy.
It's a page of text.
Yeah, it's a page of text. Whereas if I can put a person in there and if someone can relate to a photograph straight away and engage, oh, this is a human behind this story.
So in that instance, what comes first, the words or the image?
Well, it's always the image for me. It's always the image. Like that, it's cliched and it's hammy, but you know that. Whoever coined it, you know, the picture of 1,000 words. I mean, it's kind of true, right?
But I think it's so important what you just touched on. You know, that even I think, you know, as journalists, as photojournalists, as news people, even as a sports photographer, it's quite a solo career. You know, you're the one person that's taking photos, and that's all that's really needed. But this idea of collaborating with other people, you know, if someone's got the skill set to write the words to the images, why not collaborate and join forces? You know, and make a stronger product in the end. You know,
absolutely. You know, and I'll work in with the words in terms of, you know, what I saw and what I felt and what the emotion was. So I'll throw in the colour. You know, I'll speak to someone who's very analytical and can write. And you know, talking about a refugee camp in Lebanon, Shatila, which is a Palestinian refugee camp, and a friend of mine, Marika Sosnowski, was writing the piece. She's an academic and studied, you know, the Middle East extensively. She's writing the piece and she goes, what are you feeling? And I'm looking at, electrical cables that are hanging over laneways like spider webs. And, I'm adding the colour and the drama and what I'm feeling in the moment.
Yeah.
And she's just taking the notes down. Okay, that's the colour piece to
Yeah,
it. This is the reality of what, why the Palestinians are there and how it happened and the history and all.
And why has it ended up that you're spending all that time in the Middle East as opposed to other places in the world that perhaps need documenting as well? What's that? Fascination's not probably the right word, but why are you keeping?
How did you end up there?
Thank you. I couldn't get that out. Why are you drawn to that?
Drawn to that. So it sounds really cliched, but back in sort of early 90s, I think it was like 93. So I'm showing my age. I was in high school studying, and I think the topic was politics, year 12 politics. And there was this photograph of Bill Clinton, Yitzhak Rabin, and Yasser Arafat on the lawns of the White House. And I was like, I was just fascinated with this photograph. This is, and I was like, what? Who is this? Who is this Yasser Arafat character with, this wrap around his head? And it seemed so out of place that the leader of this, Palestinian movement and the leader of Israel were on the White House lawns. We'd never seen it before. And I was just obsessed with this photograph. And I don't know why. And I said, what is Palestine? Who is Palestine? What? And it always just itched, and it was always just sitting there. And I started to read, and I think at that age, in your early teenagers, you just follow the pack, you just follow your crew, you hang out. You're just starting to figure out who you might be.
Yeah.
So I'm sort of looking into this, and I'm thinking, I don't know anything, and everything you read in Australia or consumed in Australia was fairly removed, fairly one-sided. So I said, when the photography thing came around, I studied it later in life. Palestine it just sat with me, and I was like, I'm just
always there.
I'm just going to go there. I'm just going to go on my own bat, my own funds, and find out what this is about, and go and see it and consume it. And I just fell in love with the region, not just the Palestinians, but then Syria kicked off, and I'd find Palestinians in Lebanon, and then I'd find Syrians in Jordan, and I was like, I just fell in love with the whole region.
Yeah.
And then displacement became this thing. And I was like, well, you work in the space as a freelancer. You've got to be smart about the way you work and go, where am I adding value? I'm not going to rush off, say at the moment, I wouldn't rush off to Ukraine and start photographing the Ukrainian war, because the New York Times and Getty Images and everyone's there. Yeah. I'm not getting paid for that. Yeah. They're not picking up my work.
Yeah.
Right.
So where is it that I can work, that I can add a light that's not being shone? So I don't rush off to Gaza when there's bombs falling. Yeah. I'll go there 2 years later. Yeah. When the story's gone, when the media's gone, but the recovery,
but it's
it's still there.
People are still there.
There's still
they're
people
recovering.
trying to live their lives, recover. So I just. Yeah.
We touched on this a little bit off air before, but I think it's really important to address and touch on. You're a white man going over to Gaza, and yes, you've got this beautiful history of always having a passion for the place, and you've obviously been over a few times, and have an affinity with the people there and have friends there. And how does that how do you wrestle with that sort of idea of representation for people over there that are photographers in their own right, trying to get their story out?
Yeah, it's a great question, and one I recognise that as a middle-aged white Australian male, possibly the luckiest demographic on the planet. You could argue maybe American, but we have healthcare. So, I'm very, very fortunate. Yeah. And doors have opened for me because of that, through nothing that I've done. Born that way. So I've done nothing to deserve my privilege. It's what I do with that privilege. So travelling over there to tell those stories because they're not getting published, and I'm connected enough in the industry that I can possibly get this story out there, or push or get it published. But while in the region, so in Gaza, the people that organised my paperwork the first time around ran a place called the Press House in Gaza. So I spoke to their students, mentored a few of their students.
Amazing.
My fixer, who has since fled Gaza in this current war, so I worked with him a lot. Helped him be published and mentored him photographically. Giving.
I love the name. He's your fixer.
Yeah.
Just fixes everything.
Fixes everything. A fixer is he can be a translator.
Is that Shaquille for us? Maybe.
Yes, Shaquille.
Okay,
a fixer is a driver, a translator, a find you work. He's
And if you kept in touch with that person?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And where are they now?
He's got his family and children out, and he's in Cairo at the moment.
Okay.
With the intention of going back. He's Palestinian. He lives
Yeah.
in Gaza. His family and his life is there.
His life is there, yeah.
He's an incredible person. He texted me during the war, during this current conflict. I'm so sorry. I've got some bad news, and I'm like, oh my God, he's lost his wife or his child or something. He's like, the house collapsed, and I've left your camera behind. I gave him a camera last time I was there, and he goes, I'm so sorry, and I'm like, mate, you got out of there.
That's all that matters.
The fact that the camera's under rust, and
Wow.
I'll just get you another one. Like, don't panic. Like, I was sweating bullets that he was about to deliver this news. He goes, I've left your camera behind in when I fled. I'm like,
It must be, if I can get a bit just personal for a moment, it must be so hard being over here and just watching people and friends. We're all watching it and heartbroken and just, figuring out how this is happening in this day and age. But to have such connections there, it just must be, a horrible thing.
it's horrific. Just take the politics and the rhetoric and the religion and land. Take all that out of it. It's just the humanity.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. I think we say it's complicated.
Or lack of.
And the Middle East is complicated. Like Australians will never understand. We're so isolated, and we don't have bordering countries, and we don't, all of those things. Just the humanity of it, and it's not just on the Palestinian side. The humanity, the rhetoric, and the anger that Jewish people are now facing because of one government in the Middle East that is supposedly represents all of the Jews, which I'm not Jewish, I don't have skin in the game, but I know Jewish people that don't feel represented by what Israel are doing or what their government are doing, not necessarily the country. So it's hard on the Jewish population as well, and so I feel for them.
Yeah.
But I am emotionally connected to people in Gaza. I have friends in Gaza.
Yeah.
I have friends, and they are friends. They're dear. Like, you put your life in their hands a lot of the times when you travel in there. You need permission from Israel to get into Gaza.
There's a lot of trust.
And you need permission from Hamas. And Hamas need to know who you are and why you're there. So these people are looking out for you. And I don't speak the language.
Yeah.
It's about putting yourself in an uncomfortable position. It's about, like I said before, I'm white, middle-aged Australian. I've never been a minority. I've never put myself in a position where I'm not. So to walk into Gaza, when people don't walk into Gaza, you can't walk into Gaza unless you're a journalist, unless you're an aid worker, unless you're a diplomat. So when you walk in there and people are staring at you, you get this is what it's like to be. This is what it feels like to be a minority, and it's uncomfortable. And it's, people are just staring at me because of the way I look. Insane.
Yeah.
But like,
educational.
Really educational. So a lot of the work that I do overseas is, I say in a lot of ways, it's selfish because of the personal growth. I get more out of it than any photograph, any story I tell.
We can tell by just looking at you and listening to you talking as well. I'd like to just bring it back to Melbourne now and talk about what's happening here within photojournalism. And where have you been on the last few days?
Very interesting. Last few days, early this week, on a picket line out front of the 9 building with colleagues, with age photographers and age journalists. So I've spent some time down there. Now, I'm a freelancer. I do freelance for the Age, but I'm not staff there. But it felt right, and it feels important to support quality journalism, but support my colleagues in that space and some great friends, but great photographers. And it's important for me to support them in their role and their job.
And for some people that might be listening, can you explain what's going on and why there are the picket lines, just in case they're not aware?
Yeah, so they were there. The strikes this week were based on their enterprise bargain and what the 9 company were willing to pay them. But on top of that, there's a whole host of things about 9 needing to make cutbacks to journalism and losing jobs. They were out on strike more to do with the EBA and the pay rate that they were offering, and it wasn't in line with inflation and the cost of living and those sorts of things. So we needed to protect them, but it's also a bigger spotlight on what the media is facing and what newspapers, journalism and photojournalism is facing, and the protection of things like AI in journalism, and it's coming into photojournalism, or it's coming into photography. I'm pretty strong that it's not coming into photojournalism. Or for that to be called photojournalism. It's no longer photojournalism if it's got AI. So there was a host of those reasons that they were going on strike.
Right. Okay.
And I wanted to support them for that. I think it's important.
Yeah,
to support,
absolutely.
Not just support myself, but support the industry.
Yep.
I would hope someone would support me one day if something should go the other way. So yeah.
And we're sort of jumping between sort of here and overseas and the sort of work that you do, which is totally an acceptable thing to be doing living in Australia, having a variety of avenues with which you make your living and what you photograph. It makes you an individual, and that's what we're always striving as photographers, to be having a point of difference. And so with the work that you're doing with your documentary work, do you enter, are you in exhibitions? What are you doing with that body of work?
So each time I travel, I try to pitch it to outlets when I come back, globally and in Australia. It's very hard for Australia to be interested in stuff from the Middle East. So you usually go through like a Middle East desk for something like The Guardian or, any of those international outlets. And it's also pretty hard to get it published here, just through lack of interest, from an Australian media standpoint. I did have an exhibition a few years ago, called Occupation Displacement, and that was the work to date on displacement through the Middle East. I think if I, continue to work in that space, which I will, there might be a book or another exhibition down the track. And then the latest stuff has been, like I said, on statelessness and legal identity is being funded through some people, the academics that have got grants and working on that. So that
that's exciting.
Yeah, it's about collaborating with people that can get things funded, so I don't need to just fund it out of my own pocket before I leave and hope that I get it published when I get back, which is not an issue, because I don't do it for the money. That stuff is there for me to work on and shine a light where I want, without an editor telling me what I need to photograph or what it needs to look like.
Yeah, you have your own agency over it.
Yeah.
Oh, I think, I can't believe we're coming to the end of the session, because it's just so interesting to talk to, Darrian. I feel like I've known you, we've known each other for a long time, but, every time I speak to you, I just learn more and more. And yeah, you're just such a engaging person, Sally, as alluded to already. So I guess the last question we're asking everyone, just to tie the series together, is why do you do what you do? Why you do, in this day and age of strikes and AI and all these upheavals that are happening in photography? Why are you doing it?
The cliche, find something you love, you'll never work a day in your life. That, but there's something just really, I don't know, I love telling people stories. I love being given that privilege to enter someone's life and tell their story and shine a light where it maybe not going to be, shone, and just give voice to people that need it. And then selfishly, the sport thing and everything else gives me room to travel and move and see things and, document life outside of just our island, our very secluded space in the world down here. And
a very big little island.
Yeah. Are you still based in Ballarat, or are you based in Melbourne?
I'm based in Melbourne,
Yep.
Yeah. Grew up in the Rat, but no, I'm Melbourne based. Yeah.
Oh, well, look, we can't thank you enough for coming in today. It's been a joy to find out all of the other things that you do.
Yeah.
And for our listeners to be privileged enough to listen to your stories. So thank you so much for coming here today.
Thanks, Darrian.
Thanks very much, guys. I really appreciate it.
I'll also just thank Collarts for having us in their beautiful podcast booths, Shaquille and Tristan for helping us do all the things we have no idea how to do on the recording side, and for Martin for the music.
Fantastic. Well, I'll see you again, Harry.
Yeah, thanks to you too, Sally.
Okay. Have a good day.
Thanks again, Darrian.
Bye. Thanks, Darrian.
Thanks.
See ya.
Bye.